The cameras clicked like a swarm of locusts, and Helena Rivers felt every flash like a brand against her skin as Aleksandros Drăculești's cold fingers slid the diamond ring onto her trembling hand. She'd planned this, orchestrated every detail with her publicist and his council of ancient advisors. A fake engagement to save her career after the scandal that had destroyed her reputation and to soften his image before the International Vampire Accord Summit in 3 months. Mutually beneficial, entirely professional, completely temporary. So why did his crimson eyes hold hers with such devastating intensity, as if he were memorizing the exact shade of brown in her irises, the way her breath caught, the pulse hammering at her throat? "Smile, beloved," he murmured, his accent thick with old-world vowels. "They must believe this matters." Helena forced her lips to curve, leaning into his chest as instructed. He was cold even through the tailored black suit, his white hair gleaming under the camera lights like frost on midnight snow. Regal didn't begin to describe him. Aleksandros looked carved from marble and moonlight, beautiful and terrible, with the kind of face that had launched wars and toppled kingdoms during his 800 years of existence. And for the next 3 months, he would pretend to love her. The thought should have been absurd. Helena Rivers, disgraced actress who'd been caught in a compromising position with her married director, except she hadn't been. The photos were edited, but the damage was done, now engaged to the vampire king of the Eastern European bloodline, one of the 5 ruling monarchs who governed vampire society worldwide. Yet here they stood on the steps of his Manhattan penthouse, surrounded by reporters from both human and vampire press, selling a lie with diamond precision. "How did you meet?" someone shouted. Aleksandros smiled, and Helena felt her stomach flip despite herself. When he smiled like that, fangs carefully hidden, he looked almost human. Almost. "At the Metropolitan Museum Gala," he said smoothly, the lie they'd rehearsed. "She was standing before the Byzantine exhibit, and I knew I would never walk past her." Helena's publicist, Marcus, had written that line, but the way Aleksandros said it, his fingers tightening possessively around her waist, made it sound like scripture. She played her part, gazing up at him with practiced adoration. He quoted poetry in 6 dead languages. I didn't stand a chance. The reporters ate it up. Questions flew like arrows, but Aleksandros raised one elegant hand, and silence fell immediately. That was power, Helena thought, not magical compulsion the vampire laws forbade using mental influence on the press, just 8 centuries of command distilled into a single gesture. "We will answer more questions at the formal announcement next week," he said. "Tonight, I wish to celebrate privately with my intended." He guided her inside before anyone could protest, the massive doors closing behind them with cathedral finality. The moment they were alone in the marble foyer, Helena stepped away, putting professional distance between them. Her hand felt weighted with the ring, an enormous diamond surrounded by rubies that probably cost more than her childhood home. "That went well," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Very convincing." Aleksandros tilted his head, studying her with those unsettling crimson eyes. In the privacy of his home, he seemed even more otherworldly. His skin was paper white, flawless, and his features held that preternatural symmetry that marked the old vampires, the powerful ones. "You seemed uncomfortable," he observed. "I'm fine. Just not used to this much attention anymore." Not since the scandal had destroyed her career 6 months ago, leaving her blacklisted from every major production. This arrangement was her lifeline back to respectability. She couldn't afford to mess it up. "You will grow accustomed to it again." He moved toward the stairs with fluid grace. "Your belongings have been moved to the eastern wing. We must maintain appearances, so you will reside here for the duration of our arrangement." Right. She'd agreed to that. 3 months of living in a vampire's penthouse, attending events as his devoted fiancée, smiling for cameras and lying to the world. "And the rules?" she asked, following him up the sweeping staircase. Oil paintings lined the walls, originals, she realized, recognizing a Rembrandt, a Caravaggio. Of course, when you lived for centuries, you collected masterpieces the way normal people collected coffee mugs. "You may move freely during the day while I rest," Aleksandros said. "Marcus will coordinate our public appearances. You will attend 3 evening events per week minimum, and we will be seen together at carefully selected venues. In public, you will appear devoted, affectionate, believably in love. And in private, he paused at the top of the stairs, turning to face her. The chandelier above cast his white hair in silver light, and Helena's breath caught despite her best efforts. He was beautiful the way winter was beautiful, cold and deadly and absolutely mesmerizing. In private, you may be yourself, he said quietly. I have no desire to imprison you, Helena. This arrangement benefits us both, but I am not a monster. You're a vampire. Yes, but not a monster. Something flickered in his eyes, ancient and sad. Not anymore. Before she could respond, he continued down the hallway, stopping before a set of double doors. Your rooms, everything you require has been provided. If you need anything else, inform Katya. She manages the household. Katya's human? No, she's my cousin, turned in 1743, but she is discreet and loyal. He stepped back, maintaining that careful distance. Rest. Tomorrow evening we have dinner with the Vampire Council. They must approve this union, at least publicly. Helena's stomach nodded. She'd agreed to fake an engagement with a vampire king, but somehow she hadn't fully processed that she'd be surrounded by vampires, plural, ancient ones. Aleksandros must have seen her anxiety because his expression softened almost imperceptibly. They will not harm you. You are under my protection now, and vampire law is absolute. To touch my intended is to declare war against my bloodline. Comforting, she managed. It should be. There's no safer place in this world than at my side. He said it with such absolute conviction that Helena almost believed him. Good night, Helena. He disappeared down the hallway with inhuman speed, leaving her alone with her racing heart and a diamond ring that felt like both a promise and a chain. The rooms were stunning, all old-world luxury with modern comfort. A four-poster bed draped in midnight silk, antique furniture that belonged in a museum, and windows overlooking Central Park. Helena collapsed onto a velvet settee, finally allowing herself to process what she'd done. 3 months. She just had to survive 3 months of pretending to love a vampire king, and then her career would be restored, the scandal forgotten, and she could disappear back into her normal life. Simple. Except nothing about Aleksandros Drăculești felt simple, and the way he'd looked at her on those steps like she mattered, like she was precious, had felt far too real for comfort. Helena touched the ring, watching it catch the light. Just pretend, she reminded herself. He's acting too. None of this is real. But when she finally fell asleep that night in sheets that smelled of cedar and night-blooming flowers, she dreamed of crimson eyes and cold hands that held her like she was something worth protecting. The Vampire Council convened in a private dining room at Sangre, the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan, accessible only to vampires and their chosen guests. Helena wore a deep emerald gown that Marcus had selected, her dark hair swept up to expose her neck, a show of trust, apparently, in vampire society. Aleksandros had explained it in the car. To bare your throat in our presence is to declare you do not fear us. It is considered either foolish or a sign of great faith in one's protector. And which am I? Helena had asked. He'd smiled faintly. You are mine. That is all that matters. The possessiveness in his tone had sent shivers down her spine, but she'd ignored it. Acting. He was just acting. Now she sat at his right hand, facing 5 of the most powerful vampires in the world. They looked like angels carved from ice-white-haired, pale-skinned, devastatingly beautiful, and completely inhuman. Their eyes ranged from crimson to deep purple to silver, and when they looked at her, Helena felt like prey being evaluated by apex predators. She is quite lovely, purred Valentina Sanguis, the Western European monarch. Her purple eyes gleamed with amusement, though fragile, human still. Yes, Aleksandros said calmly, and she will remain so. That caused a ripple of surprise. Victor Noctis, the Russian sovereign, leaned forward with interest. You do not intend to turn her? Your bride will be mortal? My arrangement with Helena is our concern alone, Aleksandros replied, his tone brooking no argument. We seek the council's blessing, not permission. Helena forced herself to breathe steadily, to project confidence she didn't feel. She knew the script. Marcus had prepared her for this. I understand your concern, she said, meeting Valentina's gaze directly. I'm human in a world I barely understand, but I care for Aleksandros, and I respect vampire law and tradition. I'm here to learn, not to disrupt. It was a good line, humble but firm. Marcus had practiced it with her a dozen times. Isadora Nix, the African sovereign, smiled slightly. She has courage. That is worth something. Courage or stupidity, muttered Chen Wei, the Asian monarch, but he didn't sound hostile, merely curious. The fifth vampire, Lucian Argentum from South America, had remained silent until now. He studied Helena with unsettling intensity before finally speaking. Do you love him? The question hung in the air like a blade. Helena felt Aleksandros tense beside her, though his expression remained neutral. This wasn't in the script. She had to improvise. I'm learning too, she said carefully. Love isn't instant, especially between our kinds. But yes, I'm falling in love with him. The words felt strange on her tongue. A lie, obviously. Except when she glanced at Aleksandros and saw something vulnerable flash across his ancient face, Helena wondered if she was lying after all. Lucian nodded slowly. Honesty. How refreshing. He raised his glass of blood wine. I give my blessing. One by one, the others followed suit, even Victor, though his silver eyes remained skeptical. Valentina was the last, her smile knowing and slightly wicked. I hope you survive this, little human, she said. Aleksandros has been alone for a very long time. It would be tragic if you broke his heart. I have no heart left to break, Aleksandros said quietly. It died centuries ago. The council laughed, but Helena heard the truth beneath his words. The loneliness, the weight of immortality, and something inside her chest ached in response. The dinner proceeded with ritual formality courses of exotic dishes for Helena, crystal goblets of blood for the vampires. They discussed the upcoming Accord Summit, political alliances, territorial disputes. Helena listened carefully, understanding that she was witnessing something few humans ever saw, vampire royalty conducting the business of their shadow government. Aleksandros never touched his blood wine, she noticed. He sat perfectly still, contributing to discussions with calm authority, one hand resting on the table near hers. Protective, proprietary. When Valentina mentioned an insurgent group of young vampires challenging the old laws, Aleksandros's fingers moved almost imperceptibly closer to Helena's, an unconscious gesture of protection. They call themselves the New Blood, Valentina explained, her tone dismissive. They believe we should reveal ourselves fully to humanity, abandon the old ways. Foolishness, Victor growled. Humans would hunt us to extinction. Or worship us as gods, Chen Wei suggested. Either way, chaos. The laws exist for a reason, Aleksandros said firmly. We coexist with humanity through discretion and carefully maintained boundaries. The New Blood would destroy everything our ancestors built. Helena found herself speaking without planning to. But don't they have a point? I mean, you're not exactly hidden anymore. There are vampire celebrities, politicians, business leaders. Everyone knows you exist. The table went silent. Helena realized she'd probably overstepped, but Aleksandros looked at her with something like approval. She is correct, he said. We are not hidden, merely unacknowledged. Humanity knows we exist, but chooses comfortable denial over confrontation. It is an imperfect peace. One that keeps us safe, Isadora pointed out. One that keeps us isolated, Aleksandros countered. Perhaps the New Blood are not entirely wrong. Perhaps the old ways need evolution, not abandonment. This clearly sparked debate. Voices rose, arguments flowing in multiple languages. Helena sat quietly, watching Aleksandros defend his position with passionate eloquence. He believed what he was saying, she realized. This wasn't political posturing. He genuinely wanted change. Finally, Lucian raised his hand, calling for peace. This is a discussion for the summit. Tonight, we celebrate Aleksandros' engagement. He smiled at Helena. Tell me, what drew you to our frozen king? He's not known for warmth. Helena felt Aleksandros stiffen beside her, but she answered honestly. Maybe that's why. Everyone in my world is performing all the time, desperately trying to be liked. Aleksandros doesn't pretend. He's exactly who he is, unapologetically. I find that attractive. It was true, she realized as she said it. Even though their engagement was fake, there was something compelling about Aleksandros's absolute self-possession. He didn't need validation or approval. He simply existed, powerful and certain. "She sees you clearly, cousin," Valentina said, her eyes knowing. "Be careful. Clarity can be dangerous." The dinner ended with formal pleasantries, and finally, Aleksandros escorted Helena to the waiting car. The moment the door closed, she exhaled shakily. "I'm sorry if I overstepped. The thing about the new blood—" "You were magnificent," Aleksandros interrupted, and the raw sincerity in his voice made her look up sharply. "You spoke with intelligence and courage. The council respects strength, and you showed them exactly that." "I was terrified." "I know. That's why your courage matters." He was looking at her with that intensity again, the one that made her feel like the only person in the world. "Thank you, Helena, for tonight, for playing your part so well." Right. Playing. This was all playing. "Just doing my job," she said lightly, looking away. The drive home was silent, but Helena felt the weight of his gaze, the careful distance he maintained. When they arrived at the penthouse, Aleksandros walked her to her door like a gentleman from another era. "Tomorrow night we have the charity gala," he said. "It will be less formal. Dancing, champagne. Will you be comfortable?" "I'll manage." "Helena." He waited until she met his eyes. "If this becomes too much, if you wish to end our arrangement, you need only say so. I will not hold you to our contract." She should have felt relieved. Instead, something like panic fluttered in her chest. "Are you trying to get rid of me?" "No." The word came out fiercer than she expected. "No, I simply want you to know that you are not trapped. You have agency here, choice." "I choose to stay," Helena said, and meant it. "I need this, Aleksandros. My career, my reputation, this arrangement saves me. I'm not going anywhere." Something blazed in his crimson eyes, there and gone so quickly she might have imagined it. "Good, that is good." He left her then, disappearing into the darkness of the penthouse, and Helena leaned against her door, heart pounding. This was supposed to be simple. A business arrangement, fake smiles and staged photographs. So why did it feel like she was standing at the edge of something vast and dangerous, one step away from falling? The charity gala was held at the Celestine Hotel, a glittering affair of Manhattan's elite, both human and vampire. Helena wore crimson silk that draped like water, and when Aleksandros saw her, he went absolutely still. "You look like sin and salvation," he murmured, offering his arm. "You look like a gothic fantasy," she countered, taking in his tailored black suit and the antique silver cufflinks. "Very Byronic." "I knew Byron. He was insufferable." Helena laughed, surprised. "Really?" "Brilliant poet, terrible house guest. He tried to seduce my sister." Aleksandros's eyes gleamed with amusement. "I may have threatened to drain him. He left Venice shortly after." The casual mention of his impossible history made Helena's head spin. 800 years. He'd lived through empires rising and falling, had known historical figures as acquaintances, had loved and lost more times than she could imagine. "Do you miss it?" she asked as they entered the ballroom. "The past?" "Parts of it. The world was slower then, more deliberate, but also crueler. Humans died young, wars ravaged constantly, and vampires were hunted with religious fervor." He guided her through the crowd with easy grace. "The present is better, despite its chaos. We have achieved something close to peace." They were immediately surrounded by well-wishers and curious seekers. Helena played her role perfectly, smiling and accepting congratulations, her hand tucked into Aleksandros's arm. She could feel the coldness of him through the fabric, the supernatural stillness. He didn't breathe unless he was speaking, didn't shift his weight or fidget, absolutely inhuman. Yet when someone jostled her in the crowd, his arm came around her waist instantly, steadying her with gentle strength. "Careful, beloved," he murmured against her ear, and Helena shivered. They danced eventually, because the cameras demanded it. Aleksandros led her onto the floor with old-world formality, one hand at her waist, the other clasping hers with careful pressure. He was an exquisite dancer, of course, centuries of practice. "You're tense," he observed as they moved through the waltz. "I'm trying not to step on your feet." "You could not hurt me even if you tried." His thumb traced a small circle against her waist, and Helena's breath hitched. Relax. Trust me to lead. She did, letting herself flow with his guidance, and suddenly dancing became effortless. He moved like liquid shadow, spinning her through the crowd with perfect precision, and Helena found herself laughing with pure joy. There, Aleksandros said softly, his eyes warm. That is the smile I wanted to see. You wanted to see me smile? I find I want many things where you are concerned. His expression turned serious. Things I should not want. Helena's heart hammered. Aleksandros. This is pretend, he said, as if reminding himself. I must remember that. This is merely arrangement. Right, pretend. The word tasted bitter. They finished the dance in charged silence, and when the music ended, Aleksandros stepped back with formal distance. I need to speak with some council members. Will you be well alone for a moment? I'll be fine. He disappeared into the crowd, and Helena made her way to the terrace for air. The November night was cold, but she welcomed it, trying to clear her head. This was getting complicated. She was starting to feel things she absolutely should not feel for a vampire king who was paying her to pretend to love him. You are Helena Rivers. The voice came from behind her, male and cultured. Helena turned to find a vampire watching her with interest. He was young-looking, maybe mid-20s in appearance, with white blonde hair and bright crimson eyes. Handsome in that unsettling vampire way. I am. And you are? Dmitry Kozlov. I serve on the New Blood Council. He smiled, showing a hint of fang. The group your fiancé so eloquently criticized at dinner last night. Helena tensed. I didn't realize our private dinner was public knowledge. Very little remains private in vampire society. Dmitry moved closer, and Helena fought the urge to retreat. Tell me, do you truly support the old ways? The hiding, the pretending, the laws that keep us separated from humanity? I support the prevention of chaos and violence, Helena said carefully. Diplomatic. But you are human. Surely you see how vampires could improve your world. Our strength, our knowledge, our resources. Imagine what we could achieve together if we stopped pretending to be myths. Or imagine the wars that would start, Helena countered. Fear makes people violent, and humans greatly outnumber vampires. You are smarter than Aleksandros gives you credit for. Dmitry's eyes gleamed. He thinks he is protecting you, keeping you human, maintaining the old boundaries. But he is keeping you weak. I don't feel weak. No? You are mortal, fragile, aging while he remains frozen in time. How long do you think this engagement will last when you start to wither and he stays beautiful forever? The words hit harder than Helena wanted to admit. She'd thought about this, of course. Even if their arrangement was fake, the reality remained. She was human. He was immortal. There was no future there, real or imagined. Our relationship is our concern, she said firmly. Of course. Dmitry stepped back, hands raised in mock surrender. I meant no offense, simply offering perspective. When you tire of being a pet, come find me. The New Blood welcomes humans as equals, not decorations. He vanished into the crowd before Helena could respond. She stood there, shaking slightly, unsure if she was angry or unsettled or something else entirely. What did he say to you? Aleksandros appeared at her side like a ghost, his expression darker than she'd ever seen it. What did Dmitry want? To recruit me, I think. Or insult you, maybe both. Helena wrapped her arms around herself. He said you're keeping me weak by keeping me human. Aleksandros went utterly still, and Helena realized she'd never seen him truly angry before. Now, rage rolled off him in cold waves, his eyes blazing crimson fire. He has no right to speak to you of such things, he said, voice dangerously soft. You are under my protection. He violated protocol by approaching you without my presence. I can handle myself. This is not about capability, Helena. This is about respect and vampire law. He turned to face her fully, and she saw the effort it took for him to control his fury. I should challenge him for that insult, demand satisfaction. You mean fight him? I mean destroy him, said so calmly, like he was discussing the weather. He questioned my judgment, approached my intended with propaganda, and implied I would harm you. Any of those offenses would justify a blood challenge. Helena grabbed his arm without thinking. No, please don't. It's not worth it. You are worth everything. The words came out raw and honest, and Aleksandros closed his eyes briefly. Forgive me. I'm not usually so volatile. You affect me in ways I do not fully understand." "This is pretend," Helena whispered, echoing his earlier words. "Remember?" "Yes. Pretend." He looked at her with such naked longing that her breath caught. "I'm trying to remember. It is becoming difficult." They stood there on the terrace, the sounds of the gala fading into background noise, and Helena felt the truth settle into her bones. This had stopped being pretend somewhere along the way, at least for her. She was falling for a vampire king who was supposed to be temporary, and she had no idea if he felt the same or if his possessiveness was just ancient instinct, not real emotion. "We should go back inside," she said finally. "People will talk." "Let them." But Aleksandros offered his arm, and they returned to the gala together, playing their parts perfectly while the truth burned between them, unspoken and dangerous. That night, Helena couldn't sleep. She wandered the penthouse in her silk robe, exploring the vast space. Most of the rooms were unlocked, a library filled with first editions, a music room with instruments from different eras, an art gallery that would make museums weep with envy. One door was locked. Helena stood before it, curious, when Katya appeared beside her with supernatural silence. "That is the master's private chambers," the vampire said. She looked about 40, elegant in a severe way, with white hair braided into a crown. "He does not allow visitors." "I wasn't snooping, just restless." Katya studied her with pale blue eyes. "You care for him." It wasn't a question, but Helena answered anyway. "It's complicated." "Love always is." Katya's expression softened slightly. "Especially with Aleksandros. He's been alone for so long, he's forgotten how to let anyone close." "What happened to him? Why is he so isolated?" "That is his story to tell, not mine." Katya gestured toward the library. "If you cannot sleep, there are books, or I could make you tea." "Tea sounds nice, actually." They sat in the kitchen, a surprisingly modern space in the ancient-feeling penthouse, and Katya prepared chamomile with practiced efficiency. Helena wrapped her hands around the warm mug, grateful for the normalcy of the gesture. "How long have you worked for Aleksandros?" she asked. "I do not work for him. I am his family." Katya smiled faintly. "He turned me during the French Revolution. I was dying of influenza, and he could not bear to lose another cousin, so he saved me." "Another cousin?" "The human family is long dead, of course, but we vampires collect new relations over the centuries. Aleksandros has turned 12 people in 800 years. We are his bloodline, his chosen family." Helena processed this. "He doesn't turn people casually." "Never. Each turning was an act of desperate love or duty. He takes the responsibility seriously." Katya's gaze sharpened. "He will not turn you, you know, even if you beg him." "I wasn't planning to ask. No, you do not wish for immortality, beauty and power forever?" Helena thought about it honestly. "I don't know. It seems like a lot to give up. Sunlight, normal food, humanity, and the isolation living centuries while everyone you love dies. That sounds like torture." "It can be," Katya admitted. "It is also extraordinary. I have seen wonders you cannot imagine, experienced centuries of history, loved and lost and loved again. I do not regret my choice." "But it was your choice." "Yes, and Aleksandros honors that above all else. Choice, agency. He would never force immortality on you, even if it meant losing you to age and death." The words hung heavy in the air. Even if it meant losing you. As if losing her would matter to him. As if this was real. "Our engagement is fake," Helena said quietly. "A publicity arrangement. In 3 months I'll leave and he'll go back to his life." Katya laughed, the sound surprising and genuine. "Oh, child, you are naive if you believe that." "What do you mean?" "I have known Aleksandros for over 2 centuries. I have never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." Katya stood, collecting the teacups. "Fake or not, this arrangement has become very real for him. The question is whether it has become real for you as well." She left before Helena could answer, but the truth was obvious. Yes, it had become real. Terrifyingly, impossibly real. Helena returned to her room as dawn approached, and through her window, she saw Aleksandros standing on his private terrace facing the east. Waiting for sunrise, she realized with a jolt of fear. She ran without thinking, bursting through the locked door it opened for her, strangely and onto his terrace. "What are you doing? The sun is coming!" Aleksandros turned, surprised. "Helena, you should be sleeping." "So should you. Inside, away from deadly sunlight." She grabbed his arm, tugging him toward the door. "I was merely watching," he said gently, but he let her pull him inside. "I am not suicidal, beloved. I would have retreated before the sun crested." "You were cutting it close." Helena realized she was shaking. "Why would you do that?" "Because I am 800 years old, and sometimes I need to feel something, anything." He cupped her face with cold hands. "Fear reminds me I can still die, that I am not entirely a monster." "You're not a monster at all." "You say that now, but you do not know me, not truly." His thumbs traced her cheekbones with devastating gentleness. "You do not know the things I have done, the lives I have taken, the darkness I carry." "Then tell me," Helena whispered. "Stop hiding. Let me know you." Aleksandros closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were full of centuries of pain. "I was turned in 1224 during the Fifth Crusade. I was a knight, young and foolish and full of righteous fury. I killed so many in the name of God, and then I was killed myself. Drained and left to die in the desert, he moved away from her, putting distance between them. Except I did not die. An ancient vampire found me and offered a choice, death or immortality. I chose to live. I always choose to live even when death might be kinder." "Who turned you?" "Valentina. She was younger then, only 3 centuries old, but already powerful. She taught me to be vampire, to hunt and kill and survive. And I was good at it. Too good." His voice turned bitter. "For 200 years I was a monster. I reveled in power, took what I wanted, killed without conscience. I built an empire on blood and fear." Helena wanted to comfort him, but sensed he needed to finish. "Then I fell in love," Aleksandros continued. "Her name was Isabel. A human woman, brilliant and kind. And somehow she loved me despite what I was. She made me want to be better. So I stopped killing innocents, established laws for my bloodline, tried to create order from chaos." "What happened to her?" "She died. Humans do." He turned to face Helena, and his expression was devastating. "I offered her immortality, begged her to let me turn her, but she refused. She said she wanted to live one beautiful human lifetime with me rather than an eternity as a monster. So I watched her age and sicken and die, and I could not save her." Tears tracked down Helena's cheeks. "Aleksandros, that was 500 years ago. I have not allowed myself to love anyone since. I take lovers occasionally, turn someone if duty demands it, but I never let anyone close enough to matter. It is easier that way. Safer." "Lonelier," Helena whispered. "Yes, but loneliness does not destroy you the way loss does." He approached her slowly, like she was something precious and fragile. "And then you appeared in my life with your clever words and brave heart, and I find myself wanting things I swore I would never want again." "This was supposed to be pretend," Helena said, but the words had no conviction. "I know. I have failed spectacularly at pretending." His hands framed her face again, and Helena leaned into the cold touch. "I am falling in love with you, Helena Rivers. It is foolish and dangerous and entirely inappropriate, but it is true. And I needed you to know before this goes any further." Helena's heart felt too large for her chest. "I'm falling in love with you too." "You should not. I will watch you age and die. I cannot give you children or a normal life or anything resembling the future you deserve." "Maybe I don't want normal." Helena reached up, covering his hands with hers. "Maybe I want you, exactly as you are, cold and ancient and impossible." "Helena." Her name was a prayer on his lips. "I cannot turn you. I will not risk making you hate me the way Isabel would have hated me if I had forced immortality upon her." "I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking you to be honest, to stop pretending this is fake when it stopped being fake weeks ago." "It has been 4 days," Aleksandros said, but he was smiling slightly. "Best 4 days of my life." He kissed her then, and it was nothing like Helena expected. She'd thought he would be cold, careful, controlled. Instead, he kissed her like she was air and he was drowning, like she was salvation and he had been damned for centuries. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and Helena melted into him, chasing the kiss deeper. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard. Well, Helena was breathing hard. Aleksandros didn't need to breathe. He rested his forehead against hers. "This is dangerous," he murmured. "I don't care. You should. The new blood will see you as a weakness to exploit. The council will question my judgment, and you will grow old while I stay frozen. That will hurt both of us. Then we'll deal with it together." Helena pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "I'm not Isabel. I'm not afraid of you or what you are, and maybe in 3 months I'll decide immortality is worth it, or maybe I won't. But that's my choice to make. Right now, I'm choosing you." Aleksandros kissed her again, softer this time, reverent. "You undo me completely." "Good. You needed undoing." He laughed, the sound rusty but genuine, and Helena realized she'd never heard him laugh before. Not truly. It was a beautiful sound. "Stay with me today," he said. "Sleep here where I can protect you. You need to rest during the day. I'll be fine in my own room." "Please." The vulnerability in his voice decided her. "Okay. Yes." They lay down together in his massive bed, Helena in her robe, Aleksandros still fully dressed. As the sun rose outside his blackout curtains, he pulled her close, tucking her against his chest. "I do not sleep like humans do," he explained. "It is more like hibernation. I will be dead to the world until sunset. If you need anything, leave the room and Katya will help you. I'll be fine." Helena traced patterns on his chest, feeling the absolute stillness of him. No heartbeat, no breathing. Just cold, solid presence. "Thank you for telling me about Isabel, about your past. Thank you for not running in horror." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Sleep, beloved. You are safe with me. Always." Helena drifted off to the sound of silence, wrapped in the arms of a vampire king who had forgotten which parts of their arrangement were pretend. She woke in the afternoon to find Aleksandros exactly as she'd left him, perfectly still, barely there. It was unnerving and strangely peaceful. Helena slipped out carefully, not wanting to disturb whatever rest he needed. Katya was waiting in the hallway with a knowing smile. "So, you've decided to make this real. Is it that obvious?" "He let you into his private chambers. He has not done that since Isabel." Katya handed her a cup of coffee. "This is good. He needs someone to live for again." Helena accepted the coffee gratefully. "He told me about her, about his past. Did he tell you about the prophecy?" "What prophecy?" Katya hesitated, then shook her head. "Perhaps he should be the one to explain. It may be nothing. You can't just mention a prophecy and then not explain." "Very well. When Isabel died, a seer told Aleksandros that he would love again, but only when he learned to let someone choose their own fate, even if it cost him everything." Katya's pale eyes were serious. "He has been running from that prophecy for 5 centuries, terrified of what it might mean." Helena processed this. "He thinks letting me choose to stay human might fulfill it? Or letting you choose immortality, or letting you choose to leave. The prophecy was deliberately vague, as they always are." Katya shrugged. "But yes, I believe you are the one it speaks of, and I believe he knows it." "That's a lot of pressure." "Love always is," Katya smiled, "but you seem capable of handling it. Now, Marcus called. He wants to schedule more public appearances. You have a television interview tomorrow night." The next few weeks blurred into a whirlwind of activity. Helena and Aleksandros appeared on talk shows, attended galas, gave interviews to glossy magazines. They played the devoted couple so convincingly that Helena sometimes forgot it had started as pretend. Except now it wasn't pretend at all. In private, Aleksandros was attentive and surprisingly romantic. He brought her rare books from his collection, played centuries-old music on the violin, taught her to dance the waltz properly. They talked for hours about everything: history, philosophy, art, the complications of immortality versus the beauty of mortal existence. He never pressured her about turning, never even mentioned it. But Helena saw the shadow in his eyes sometimes, the awareness that she was aging imperceptibly, yes, but aging nonetheless while he stayed frozen. The first real test came at the Vampire Summit, held in a Gothic castle in upstate New York that served as neutral territory for all 5 bloodlines. Hundreds of vampires attended, from ancient council members to newly turned youngsters, all gathering to discuss the future of vampire-human relations. The New Blood faction was there in force, led by Dimitri and a fierce vampire woman named Ekaterina. They pushed for full disclosure, for vampires to step out of the shadows and claim their rightful place as superior beings. Aleksandros argued passionately for the old ways, not hiding, but coexisting carefully, maintaining the delicate peace. "You speak of superiority," he said during one heated debate, his voice ringing through the great hall. "But superiority means nothing without responsibility. We are stronger, yes, faster, more durable. But that does not give us the right to dominate. It gives us the duty to protect." "Protect humans?" Ekaterina sneered. "They are cattle, food. Why should we protect those we feed upon?" "Because they are people," Helena found herself saying. Every vampire eye turned to her, and she forced herself not to flinch. "You were all human once. You had families, dreams, fears. That doesn't disappear just because you died and came back different." "The human speaks wisdom," Valentina said from her throne. "Perhaps we should listen." "She is Aleksandros's pet," Dimitri argued. "Of course she defends humanity. She is one of them." "She is my intended," Aleksandros corrected, his voice dropping to dangerous softness. "And you will speak of her with respect, or I will teach you manners the old way." The threat hung in the air. Dimitri wisely backed down, but his eyes promised future confrontation. The summit stretched over 3 days, and by the end, Helena was exhausted. A tentative compromise was reached. Vampires would continue the current system of open existence but maintain discretion. No forced reveals, no campaigns for supremacy, but also no more hiding. Evolution, not revolution. The New Blood accepted grudgingly, but Helena saw the resentment in their eyes. This wasn't over. On the final night, there was a celebration. Blood wine flowed freely, and vampires danced with inhuman grace. Aleksandros held Helena close, moving her through a complicated waltz while the orchestra played something baroque and beautiful. "You were magnificent today," he murmured. "You stood before the Vampire Council and spoke truth without fear. I am in awe of you." "I was terrified," Helena admitted. "I know. That is what makes your courage remarkable." He spun her gracefully. "I love you, Helena Rivers. I know I should not, that it is complicated and doomed and entirely unfair to you. But I love you with everything I have left in this cold, dead heart." "I love you too," Helena whispered, "and it's not doomed. We'll figure it out." "Will we?" His expression turned sad. "You are 28 years old. In 10 years you will be 38. In 50, 78. And I will look exactly as I do now, watching you age and wither and die. Then turn me." The words escaped before Helena fully processed them, but the moment they were spoken, she knew she meant them. Aleksandros stopped dancing, staring at her with wide crimson eyes. "What?" "Turn me," Helena repeated, more certain now. "Make me vampire. Give us eternity." "No," he stepped back, releasing her. "No, I will not do that to you. It's my choice." "You are not thinking clearly. You're caught up in romance and excitement. In a year, you would regret it." "I wouldn't." Helena grabbed his hands, forcing him to look at her. "I've thought about this constantly. Yes, I'd be giving up sunlight and humanity, but I'd be gaining centuries with you, time to explore and learn and exist. That's worth it. You say that now, but you do not understand the reality. The endless hunger, the isolation, watching everyone you knew as human die. The weight of centuries, the boredom and loneliness, and—" "I would have you," Helena interrupted. "That's enough." "It was not enough for Isabel." "I'm not Isabel." Helena's voice rose, frustration boiling over. "I'm me, and I'm making a different choice." "Why won't you let me?" "Because I love you too much to damn you." Aleksandros's voice broke. "Because if you came to hate me, if immortality destroyed you the way I have seen it destroy others, I could not bear it. I would rather have 50 years with you mortal than an eternity with you resenting me." Helena saw the truth then, the core of his fear. He wasn't protecting her. He was protecting himself from the possibility of her regret. "You're scared," she said softly. Terrified, he admitted. You are the best thing to happen to me in 500 years, and I'm afraid of ruining you. You won't. You cannot know that. Neither can you. Helena cupped his face, making him meet her eyes. Love is always a risk. Mortal or immortal, there are no guarantees, but I would rather risk eternity with you than play it safe alone. Helena, I'm not asking you to turn me tonight. Take time, think about it, but don't say no out of fear. That's not worthy of either of us. Aleksandros pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. You undo me, he whispered, completely and utterly. Good, Helena said again, and held him as the orchestra played on. They didn't discuss it further that night, but the question hung between them, unanswered and heavy. The attack came 2 weeks later, sudden and brutal. Helena was shopping in Manhattan, accompanied by 2 vampire guards from Aleksandros' bloodline. She'd grown accustomed to the protection, barely noticing the silent shadows anymore. So when they suddenly moved to flank her, tense and alert, she knew something was wrong. What? The explosion cut her off. The storefront beside them erupted in flames and debris, throwing Helena to the ground. She heard screams, smelled smoke and blood, felt hands grabbing her roughly. Get her out of here, one of the guards shouted. But there were too many attackers, vampires, young and fast, wearing the red armbands of the new blood. They swarmed the guards with vicious efficiency, and Helena found herself being dragged into a waiting van. She fought, screaming and kicking, but vampire strength overwhelmed her easily. Something sharp pricked her neck a needle, and the world went fuzzy. Her last thought before darkness claimed her was, Aleksandros will come. He'll find me. Helena woke in a concrete room, her head pounding and mouth dry. Her hands were zip-tied to a metal chair, and the only light came from a bare bulb swinging overhead. Dmitri stepped into view, smiling pleasantly. Good evening, Helena. I apologize for the dramatic extraction, but Aleksandros would never have let you go willingly. Where am I? Her voice came out hoarse. Somewhere safe. For now. Dmitri pulled up a chair, sitting backward on it casually. I want to make you an offer. Not interested. You have not heard it yet. Join us, the new blood. We could use someone like you, intelligent, brave, and with access to the vampire king himself. Helena laughed bitterly. You think I'd betray Aleksandros? I think you are smarter than to waste your life on a doomed relationship. Dmitri's eyes gleamed. He will never turn you. You know this, yes? He is too damaged, too afraid. So you will age and die, and he will move on eventually. Is that the future you want? What I want is none of your business. But it is, because you represent everything wrong with the old ways humans kept as pets, treated as fragile things to be protected rather than partners. Dmitri leaned forward. We would turn you tonight if you asked, give you the immortality Aleksandros denies you. For a moment, just a moment, Helena was tempted. The offer of power, of eternal life, without having to convince Aleksandros to overcome his fears. Then she remembered the way Aleksandros looked at her, the centuries of pain in his eyes, the love he'd finally allowed himself to feel. Turning vampire was supposed to be a choice born from love, not coercion or political maneuvering. No, she said firmly. I don't want your version of immortality. I want his, and I'll wait as long as it takes. Dmitri's pleasant expression hardened. Then you are a fool. And unfortunately, now you are also a liability. He stood, and Ekaterina entered the room with a wicked smile. The vampire king will come for her. He always does for his pets. And when he does, we will be ready, Dmitri agreed. A challenge, old way, blood combat for leadership of his bloodline. Horror washed through Helena. You can't. That's archaic. The council would never. The council recognizes ancient law. If Aleksandros accepts the challenge, it is binding. Dmitri smiled coldly. And he will accept, to save you. He is predictable that way. You'll kill him. Perhaps, or perhaps he will kill me, but the attempt will weaken him enough that others will challenge. Either way, the old guard falls, and the new blood rises. Dmitri headed for the door. Make yourself comfortable. Helena, your king will be here soon. They left her alone in the darkness, and Helena fought against the zip ties until her wrists bled. It was useless. She was human, fragile, helpless, exactly what Dmitri had said, Except Aleksandros had never made her feel helpless. He'd made her feel strong, valued, seen. And she refused to be the weakness that destroyed him. She didn't know how long she waited. Hours, maybe. Long enough for her arms to go numb and her fear to crystallize into determination. When the door finally opened, it wasn't her captors returning. It was Aleksandros, moving like death itself, his eyes blazing crimson fire in the darkness. Helena. Her name was a prayer and a curse. He crossed the room in an instant, breaking the zip ties like paper and pulling her into his arms. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. It's a trap, Aleksandros. They want you to challenge Dmitri." "I know." He checked her over carefully, his cold hands gentle despite the fury rolling off him. "I accepted his challenge the moment I discovered you were taken." "No, that's what they want. They'll kill you." "They will try." Aleksandros cupped her face, his expression fierce and tender. "Did you truly think I would let them keep you? That I would calculate odds and risks when you were in danger? You are mine, Helena. I would burn the world to ash to get you back. Don't do this. There has to be another way." "There is not. Vampire law is absolute. I challenged for your return," he accepted, "and now we fight to the death." He kissed her forehead gently. "But I've been fighting for 800 years. Beloved, I do not intend to lose." Aleksandros. "Katya is outside with reinforcements. She will take you somewhere safe. I'm not leaving you. You must. I cannot fight knowing you are at risk." His thumbs traced her cheekbones. "Please, Helena, let me protect you this way." Before she could argue further, Katya appeared in the doorway. "Cousin, they are coming. We must move." Aleksandros kissed Helena once, hard and desperate. "I love you. Remember that, whatever happens." Then Katya was pulling her away, and Helena watched helplessly as Aleksandros disappeared into the darkness to face an enemy who wanted him dead. The safe house was a fortified apartment in Queens, warded with protections and guarded by 6 vampires from Aleksandros' bloodline. Katya paced like a caged tiger, her phone pressed to her ear as she coordinated with others. Helena sat frozen, replaying Aleksandros' last kiss, the certainty in his voice when he said he loved her. "What happens if he loses?" she asked quietly. Katya looked at her with ancient sorrow. "Then his bloodline fractures. Dmitri claims leadership of the Eastern European territory, and the new blood gains significant power. The council would be forced to recognize the challenge results. And Aleksandros dies." "Yes." Helena stood abruptly. "Take me there." "Absolutely not," he ordered. "I don't care what he ordered," Helena's voice cracked. "If he's going to die, I will not spend his last moments hiding in fear. Take me there, or I swear I'll find my own way." Katya studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "He chose well. Very well. Come." They arrived at an old warehouse on the waterfront just as the fight began. Hundreds of vampires surrounded a cleared circle, evenly divided between new blood and traditional bloodlines. The council sat in judgment, Valentina presiding with cold authority. And in the center of the circle stood Aleksandros and Dmitri, circling each other with predatory grace. Helena pushed through the crowd, Katya clearing a path with hissed warnings. She reached the front just as first blood was drawn, Dmitri's claws raking across Aleksandros' chest, leaving deep gouges that bled black in the dim light. Aleksandros didn't flinch. He moved like water, like shadow, 8 centuries of combat experience in every calculated strike. His fist connected with Dmitri's jaw, sending the younger vampire flying into the concrete wall hard enough to crack it. "You are outmatched," Aleksandros said calmly. "Yield, and I will show mercy." Dmitri laughed, blood staining his teeth. "Mercy is weakness, old king. The new world has no place for it." They clashed again, too fast for Helena's human eyes to fully track. It was brutal and beautiful, 2 apex predators fighting with no restraint. Dmitri was younger, faster, desperate. But Aleksandros was ancient, skilled, and absolutely ruthless. Blood splattered across the concrete, bones cracked, vampires hissed and cheered from the sidelines, and then Dmitri made a mistake. He overextended on a lunge, and Aleksandros caught his arm, twisting with supernatural strength. The crack was audible across the warehouse. Dmitri screamed, dropping to his knees. Aleksandros could have ended it there. One strike would have torn Dmitri's heart out, finishing the challenge. Instead, he stepped back. "Yield," he said again. "I do not wish to kill you, Dmitri. You are young and misguided, but you are still my kind. Yield and live." For a moment, Helena thought Dmitri might take the offer. His crimson eyes flickered with uncertainty. Then, Ekaterina threw something from the crowd, a wooden stake, ancient and blessed. Dmitri caught it with his unbroken arm and lunged. Everything happened too fast. Aleksandros twisted, but the stake grazed his side, blessed wood burning into vampire flesh. He staggered, and Dmitri pressed his advantage, driving Aleksandros back toward the wall. Helena moved without thinking. She grabbed a metal pipe from the floor and swung with all her strength, catching Dmitri across the back of his skull. It barely fazed him. She was human, weak, but it distracted him for half a second. That was all Aleksandros needed. His hand drove through Dmitri's chest with surgical precision, and when he pulled back, the young vampire's heart came with it. Dmitri crumbled to ash, his shocked expression frozen for an instant before he disintegrated completely. Silence fell across the warehouse. Aleksandros stood there, covered in blood, his and Dmitri's, holding the dissolving heart as it turned to dust in his palm. Then his eyes found Helena, and his expression transformed from cold fury to desperate relief. "You should not have interfered," he said, but there was no anger in it. "You could have been killed." "So could you," Helena shot back. Valentina stood from her throne, her voice ringing with authority. "The challenge is concluded. Aleksandros Drăculești retains leadership of the Eastern European bloodline. The New Bloods challenge is rejected." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ekaterina looked like she wanted to protest, but Lucian fixed her with a quelling stare. "This matter is closed," Valentina continued. "Any further challenges will be met with council intervention. We have indulged the New Bloods' revolutionary fantasies long enough. The old ways stand." Slowly, the vampires dispersed. The New Blood members slunk away, defeated and leaderless. Aleksandros's bloodline surrounded them protectively, Katya issuing orders with calm efficiency. And Aleksandros pulled Helena into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "You are the bravest, most foolish woman I have ever known," he whispered against her hair. "You attacked a vampire to save me. I love you. I wasn't going to just watch you die. I would have won regardless. Maybe. But I wasn't taking chances." Helena pulled back enough to see the wound on his side, still smoking from blessed wood. "You're hurt. It will heal." He touched her face like she was something precious. "You risked yourself for me." "Of course I did. That's what love means." Something shifted in his expression, a decision being made. "Come with me. Now." He led her out of the warehouse, Katya and the guards following at a discreet distance. They drove back to the penthouse in silence, Aleksandros's hand gripping hers with almost painful intensity. Once inside his private chambers, he turned to face her with devastating seriousness. "You asked me to turn you," he said without preamble. "Are you certain? Truly certain? Because after tonight, watching you risk yourself, knowing you chose to stand with me despite the danger, I cannot let you go. I cannot watch you age and die. I am too selfish for that." Helena's heart raced. "I'm certain. I've been certain for weeks. There is no reversal. Once done, you will be vampire forever. You will never see daylight again, never taste human food, never grow old naturally. You will outlive everyone you know. The weight of centuries will press upon you, and some days it will feel like a curse. I know. You will have to feed on blood, take lives, or at least draw from them. The hunger is constant, demanding. I know. You will be bound to me as your sire. Our connection will be absolute, possibly overwhelming. You will feel my emotions, my presence, always. Aleksandros." Helena stepped closer, taking his cold hands. "I know the risks. I know what I'm giving up and what I'm gaining, and I choose this. I choose you. I choose us. Turn me." He closed his eyes, warring with 800 years of fear and guilt. Then he opened them, and they blazed with love and determination. "I will turn you," he said. "But we do this the old way, with ritual and reverence, as my ancestors did. You will be my bride in truth, not pretense, my equal, my partner, My eternal companion. Yes, Helena whispered. Yes to all of it. Aleksandros kissed her then, and it was different from before. This kiss was a promise, a claiming, a beginning. His fangs nicked her lip, and she tasted copper and eternity. 3 days, he murmured against her mouth. I will prepare the ritual, and then, beloved, I will give you forever. The 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Aleksandros explained the turning process with clinical precision, making sure she understood every detail. Helena would drink his blood first, flooding her system with his essence. Then, he would drain her completely, bringing her to the edge of death. Finally, she would drink from him again, and the transformation would begin. It would take 3 nights of agony as her body died and reformed. She would feel every cell changing, every mortal weakness burning away. Many humans went mad during the turning, their minds unable to process the transformation. But Aleksandros would be with her every moment, his blood singing in her veins, his presence anchoring her to sanity. The Vampire Council required notification for any turning, so Valentina and the others arrived the night before the ritual. They gathered in Aleksandros' formal receiving room, assessing Helena with varying degrees of skepticism and approval. You understand this is permanent, Valentina said, her purple eyes piercing. There is no changing your mind halfway through. You complete the ritual or you die. I understand, Helena said firmly. Why do you want this? Victor demanded. Immortality is not a gift. It is a burden. I want this because I love Aleksandros, and I want to spend eternity with him. And yes, because I'm fascinated by the idea of centuries to learn and explore and exist. I'm not afraid of the burden. I'll carry it gladly. Chen Wei smiled slightly. She has courage. That counts for something. She has love, Isadora corrected. That counts for everything. Lucian was the last to speak. Aleksandros, are you certain? The prophecy is fulfilled, Aleksandros interrupted quietly. She chose this freely, without coercion or manipulation. I'm letting her determine her own fate, even though it terrifies me. The prophecy is complete. Valentina stood, and the others followed. Then we give our blessing. Welcome to immortality, Helena Rivers. May you find joy in the endless years ahead. They left in a swirl of formal robes, and Helena turned to Aleksandros with wide eyes. That's it? They're okay with this? You impressed them. Not many humans can face down the Vampire Council without flinching. He pulled her close. Are you ready? We begin at midnight. I'm ready. The ritual took place in Aleksandros' private chamber, witnessed only by Katya and 2 other bloodline members. Candles filled the space, casting dancing shadows across Gothic stonework. Aleksandros had changed into formal robes, black and silver, looking every inch the ancient king. Helena wore white silk, a bride in truth. They stood in the center of a chalk circle inscribed with symbols Helena didn't recognize. Aleksandros spoke in a language older than Latin, his voice resonating with power. Then he bit his own wrist, blood welling black and potent. Drink, he commanded softly. Take my essence into yourself. Helena pressed her mouth to the wound, and vampire blood flooded her senses. It tasted like metal and midnight, like power and darkness and ancient magic. She drank until Aleksandros gently pulled away. Now comes the hard part, he murmured. His fangs descended, longer and sharper than she'd ever seen them, and Helena tilted her head, offering her throat. The bite was pleasure and pain combined. She felt him drinking, felt her life flowing out in steady pulls, and her vision started to gray. Her heartbeat slowed, stuttering. Cold spread through her limbs. Dying felt like falling asleep. Just before consciousness faded completely, Aleksandros bit his wrist again and pressed it to her lips. Drink, beloved, come back to me. Drink and be reborn. Helena drank, and fire exploded through her veins. The transformation was agony. Every cell in her body screamed as it died and reformed. Her heart stopped completely, then started again with a different rhythm. Her senses exploded. She could hear conversations 3 floors away, smell individual blood types, see in perfect darkness. And the hunger hit like a tsunami, all-consuming and desperate. Aleksandros held her through it all, his voice a constant anchor. I know it hurts, I know. But you are strong, Helena. You will survive this. Stay with me. She screamed and thrashed and begged for death, but his arms never loosened, his presence never wavered. Time lost meaning. There was only pain and transformation, and Aleksandros's voice pulling her back from the edge of madness. Finally, after an eternity compressed into 3 nights, the pain receded. Helena opened her eyes crimson now, like his, and the world had never been clearer. She could hear Aleksandros's breathing, deliberately measured for her comfort, could smell the blood in Katya's veins across the room, could feel the ancient power humming in her own transformed body. "How do you feel?" Aleksandros asked carefully. Helena tested her new strength, sitting up with easy grace. Everything felt different, sharper, more defined, electric. "Hungry," she admitted. "God, so hungry." "I know. We will hunt soon." He cupped her face, studying her with wonder. "You are magnificent. Look." He held up a mirror, and Helena gasped. Her skin was porcelain white now, flawless and luminous. Her hair had lightened to platinum blonde, and her eyes blazed crimson. She looked regal, dangerous, beautiful. She looked vampire. "The first feeding is important," Aleksandros explained, helping her to her feet. "I will teach you to hunt with precision, to take only what you need without killing. Vampire law requires control." They went out into the night together, and Helena learned what it meant to be predator. Aleksandros taught her to select prey carefully: criminals, abusers, those who hurt others. She learned to drink enough to satisfy the hunger without draining them completely, to cloud their memories of the encounter, to leave them alive. It was intoxicating and terrifying, this new power. But with Aleksandros at her side, Helena felt capable of mastering it. Weeks passed as she adjusted to her new existence. The hardest part was giving up sunlight. She grieved the loss of daylight more than she'd expected. But the trade-off was worth it. She had eternity with Aleksandros, and that made every sacrifice worthwhile. The Vampire Council formally recognized her transformation, and Helena became Lady Drăculești, consort to the Eastern European king. She attended council meetings, learned vampire politics, studied ancient languages and histories. And every night, she fell asleep in Aleksandros's arms, grateful for the choice she'd made. The official wedding took place 3 months after her turning, a grand affair that united both vampire and human guests. Helena wore crimson and diamonds, and Aleksandros looked at her like she was the son he'd lost centuries ago. "I love you," he said as they danced their first dance as husband and wife. "For however long eternity lasts, I will love you." "Forever," Helena promised. "We have forever now." Marcus approached them later in the evening, grinning widely. "Best publicity stunt I ever orchestrated. Who knew a fake engagement would turn into the vampire love story of the century?" "It stopped being fake the moment I met her," Aleksandros said, pulling Helena closer. "I simply forgot which part was pretend." Helena laughed, pressing a kiss to his cold lips. All of it was real, every moment. And it was true. From the first camera flash to this moment, surrounded by friends and family, both human and vampire, everything had been leading to this. A love that transcended mortality, a choice freely made, and an eternity stretched out before them like a gift. The new blood never challenged them again. Ekaterina eventually sought asylum with Aleksandros's bloodline, admitting the movement had lost its way. The vampire world found new balance, evolving slowly rather than revolting violently. And through it all, Helena and Aleksandros stood together. Partners in truth, equals in power, eternal in their devotion. On their first anniversary, they stood on his private terrace watching the stars, and Aleksandros pulled her close with the same possessive tenderness he'd shown that first night. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "Giving up humanity for this?" Helena thought about it honestly. She missed sunlight sometimes, missed the simplicity of mortality. But she had centuries ahead to explore the world, to learn and grow and exist alongside the man she loved with everything in her. "Not for a second," she said. "This is exactly where I'm supposed to be." "I spent 500 years afraid to love again," Aleksandros murmured, "afraid of loss and pain and inevitable death. Then you walked into my life and showed me that love is worth the risk, always." "We don't have to risk loss anymore," Helena pointed out. "We have forever." "Yes, we do." He kissed her softly, reverently. "Thank you for choosing me, for choosing this, for being brave enough to love a monster." "You're not a monster. You never were." Helena smiled, fangs glinting in the moonlight. You're my husband, my partner, my king. And you are my queen, my salvation, my everything. They stood together beneath the stars, two vampires who had found each other across centuries of loneliness and fear, and they knew with absolute certainty that whatever eternity brought, they would face it together. The fake engagement had become the realest love either of them had ever known, and that truth would sustain them through all the endless years ahead. Forever started now, and it had never looked more beautiful. Years passed like water, and Helena thrived in her new existence. She became a respected voice on the Vampire Council, advocating for continued evolution and cooperation with humanity. Her unique perspective, turned vampire rather than born to centuries of tradition, gave her insights the ancient ones lacked. Aleksandros watched her grow into her power with fierce pride. She was everything he'd hoped for, and more: strong, compassionate, brilliant, and utterly fearless. Together they reshaped vampire society, slowly modernizing ancient laws while preserving the traditions that mattered. They traveled the world, visiting the other bloodlines, exploring human cultures, collecting art and music and memories. Helena learned to paint in the Italian Renaissance style from a vampire who'd actually known Michelangelo. She studied philosophy with Chen Wei, combat with Victor, and politics with Valentina. But her favorite moments were the quiet ones, just her and Aleksandros, reading together in their library, dancing to centuries-old music, talking through the long nights about everything and nothing. "Do you ever miss it?" he asked one evening, 50 years into their marriage. "Your human life?" Helena considered the question carefully. "I miss some things, the simplicity, the sunlight, the way food used to taste. But I don't miss the limitations. As a human, I had maybe 50 more years. Now I have millennia. The trade was worth it." "No regrets?" "Only that I didn't meet you sooner." She curled into his side, perfectly content. "Though I suppose the timing was exactly right. If we'd met when I was younger, I wouldn't have been ready for this. Everything happened when it was supposed to." Aleksandros pressed a kiss to her white blonde hair. "I spent 800 years waiting for you. I would have waited 800 more. Lucky you didn't have to. The luckiest vampire in existence." They sat in comfortable silence, watching snow fall outside their windows. Winter had become Helena's favorite season, the long nights, the crystalline beauty, the way the world slowed down. It reminded her of Aleksandros, cold and beautiful and essential. "We should host the next summit," she said suddenly, "here in Manhattan. Show the other bloodlines how integration can work." "Bold suggestion. The council will debate endlessly. Then we'll convince them, together." Helena smiled, fangs glinting. "We're good at that." And they were. Over the following decades, Helena and Aleksandros became the model for vampire-human cooperation. They established programs for newly turned vampires, created ethical feeding guidelines, built bridges between their world and humanity. Not everyone approved. There were always traditionalists who resented change, rebels who wanted revolution instead of evolution. But Helena and Aleksandros stood firm, united in their vision for a better future. On their 100th anniversary, Katya organized a celebration that brought together vampires from all 5 bloodlines. The penthouse overflowed with guests, music, and laughter that rang through the night. Valentina pulled Helena aside at one point, her purple eyes warm with approval. "You have exceeded every expectation, child. When Aleksandros first announced your engagement, I thought it was political maneuvering. I never imagined it would become the greatest love story of our age." "It started as political maneuvering," Helena admitted. "Fake engagement for the cameras. But somewhere along the way, we forgot which part was pretend." "Love has a way of making fools of us all," Valentina said with a smile. "I am glad he found you. He deserves happiness after so much loneliness." "We both do." As the party continued, Helena found Aleksandros on their private terrace, watching the city lights with contemplative stillness. She joined him, slipping her hand into his. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "Isabel," he said quietly. "Wondering what she would think of you, of us. She always said I deserved to be happy, but I never believed her. Until you. Do you think she'd approve? I think she would adore you. You have her courage, her kindness, her fierce determination to make the world better." Aleksandros turned to face Helena fully. She chose a mortal life because she did not want to lose her humanity. You chose immortality and kept your humanity anyway. That is extraordinary. I had a good teacher. Helena rose on her toes to kiss him softly. I love you, Aleksandros Drăculești. 100 years down, eternity to go. Eternity with you, he murmured, the only forever worth having. They returned to the party hand in hand, vampire king and queen, partners in every way that mattered. And as Helena laughed with Katya, debated philosophy with Chen Wei, and danced with her husband beneath crystal chandeliers, she knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. This was her life now, not the Hollywood dreams she'd once chased, not the scandal that had destroyed her reputation, not even the fake engagement that had brought them together. This was real, the love, the partnership, the eternal journey ahead, and it was perfect. The night wound down eventually, guests departing with warm farewells and promises to visit soon. When finally they were alone, Aleksandros carried Helena to their bedroom with supernatural speed, both laughing like newlyweds. 100 years, he said in wonder, laying her gently on their bed, and you still take my breath away. You don't breathe, Helena teased, a figure of speech. Allow me the poetry. He stretched out beside her, pulling her close. I love you, Helena, more than I have words to express in any of the languages I know. Show me instead, she whispered, and he did, with touch and tenderness, with passion and devotion, with all the love contained in 800 years of loneliness, finally finding its home. Later, as they lay tangled together in satisfied contentment, Helena traced patterns on his chest absently. Her mind wandered to their beginning, to the press conference that had started everything. Do you remember that first night, she asked, when you put the ring on my finger in front of all those cameras? I remember every detail. You were terrified, but hiding it perfectly. So brave, so beautiful. I knew then that this arrangement would be dangerous for me. Because you were already falling in love? Because I recognized you, Aleksandros said quietly. Some part of my soul knew you belonged with me, even when my mind insisted it was merely business. The heart knows things the head refuses to acknowledge. The heart is smarter than the head, Helena agreed. Mine knew I loved you long before I admitted it. When did you know? Truly know? Helena thought back through the whirlwind of their courtship. The night you told me about Isabel, when you were vulnerable and honest and let me see the real you beneath the king. That's when I knew I was completely lost. I knew the moment you grabbed that metal pipe and attacked Dmitri to save me, Aleksandros said with a soft laugh. You were human, fragile, utterly outmatched, and you fought a vampire anyway. That kind of courage, that kind of love, I knew I would never let you go. Good thing I didn't want to be let go. They fell silent, simply existing together in perfect peace. Outside, the city hummed with life, humans sleeping, vampires hunting, the world turning through another night. And here in their sanctuary, two souls who had found each other against all odds, held tight to their forever. Tell me something, Helena said eventually. If you could go back and change anything, would you? Aleksandros considered seriously. I would have told you I loved you sooner. Wasted less time pretending, more time simply being together. We had our reasons for pretending. The arrangement needed to look authentic. It was authentic. We were the only ones who didn't realize it. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. What would you change? Nothing, Helena said firmly. Every moment, every choice led us here. I wouldn't risk changing anything and losing this. Wise answer. I have my moments. They drifted into that peaceful stillness that passed for sleep among vampires, not truly unconscious, but deeply resting, wrapped in each other's presence. And when they woke the next evening, it was to begin another night of their endless journey together. The decades continued their patient march. Helena and Aleksandros became legends in vampire society, the king who had loved and lost, and the human who had loved him enough to choose eternity. Their story was told to newly turned vampires as inspiration, written about in both human and vampire literature, celebrated as proof that love could transcend even death itself. But to them, it was simply their life. Not a fairy tale or legend, but the daily reality of choosing each other, over and over, through every challenge and joy and quiet moment. They fostered young vampires who struggled with their transformation, offering guidance and support. They mediated disputes between bloodlines, their partnership serving as neutral ground. They even began mentoring human vampire couples, helping others navigate the complicated choice of mortality versus eternity. And through it all, their love deepened and evolved. What had started as attraction, then grown into passion, matured into something more profound. They became each other's home, each other's anchor, each other's reason for embracing immortality rather than merely enduring it. On a quiet evening, 200 years into their marriage, they returned to the waterfront warehouse where Aleksandros had fought Dmitri. It had been converted into a museum now, commemorating the turning point when vampire society had chosen evolution over revolution. "Strange to think this place almost saw your death," Helena murmured, looking around the carefully preserved space. "Strange to think it saw my true rebirth," Aleksandros countered. "I may have defeated Dmitri, but you defeated my fears. This is where I finally accepted that loving you was worth any risk." And was it? Worth the risk? He pulled her close, his crimson eyes blazing with certainty. Every moment, every risk, every fear overcome. "You are worth everything, Helena. Everything I am, everything I have, everything I will ever be. It all belongs to you." "I love you," she whispered, the words carrying 2 centuries of devotion. "For all eternity, I love you. And I love you, my queen, my wife, my heart." Aleksandros kissed her softly. "Thank you for pretending to love me, until we both forgot it was pretend." Helena laughed against his lips. "Best acting job of my career." "Mine too." They left the museum hand in hand, stepping out into the night that belonged to them. The city had changed dramatically over 200 years, but some things remained constant. The stars overhead, the river flowing past, and the eternal bond between 2 souls who had chosen forever. They went home to their penthouse, to the life they'd built together, to the future stretching endlessly ahead. And as they stood on their terrace watching the world turn below, Helena knew with absolute certainty that she had made the right choice, not just in accepting immortality, but in loving Aleksandros, in fighting for him, choosing him, building a life with him that spanned centuries and would continue spanning millennia. "What shall we do tomorrow?" Aleksandros asked, his arm around her waist. "Tomorrow?" Helena smiled, leaning into his embrace. "Tomorrow we'll do what we always do. Live, love, and be grateful for every moment we have together." "Sounds perfect." "It is perfect. We're perfect." She turned in his arms, rising up to kiss him deeply. "And we have all of eternity to stay this way." "Forever," Aleksandros agreed, pulling her closer. Forever," Helena echoed. And it was. The cameras had clicked that first night, capturing what everyone thought was a publicity stunt, a fake engagement for reputation and politics, a mutually beneficial arrangement between a disgraced actress and a vampire king seeking better optics. But the cameras had captured truth, even when the participants didn't realize it yet. They'd captured the beginning of a love story that would outlast empires, transcend mortality, and prove that sometimes the best things in life start with a little pretending. Aleksandros and Helena had faked an engagement for the cameras, and somewhere along the way they'd forgotten which part was pretend. But the truth was simpler than that. Nothing had been pretend. From the very first moment, they had been falling toward this inevitable conclusion. The cameras had simply documented what destiny had already written: a love for the ages, a partnership for eternity, 2 souls who found each other in the darkness and chose to face forever together. And they lived, truly lived, happily ever after, not in the fairy tale way, but in the real, complicated, beautiful way of 2 people who chose each other every single night for all of eternity. The end.